Thank you for joining us tonight for tonight's Matthew 25 Monday program. I'm Mike Schley, Elder and Chair for Social Justice at St. Andrews. Please join me in an opening prayer. O Lord, thank you for bringing us together this evening. We ask that you give us guidance, strength, courage, and humility as we work to find ways to follow your commands, to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, comfort the afflicted, and nurture the young. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Our guest tonight is Joe Burmester. Many of you know Joe already. He is the executive director of Loaves and Fishes. Joe had a long career in the corporate world, working for companies such as KPMG and in executive leadership at a number of technology companies. Then 8 years ago, he left the corporate world and took a job at a small nonprofit as executive director at Loaves and Fishes. Joe, I'll turn it over to you to tell the rest of the story.
Okay, thank you. I've got personally long ties at St. Andrews. It's not only a personal connection, but also, Loaves and Fishes has been working with St. Andrews. I think a couple of weeks ago, we figured out since the very beginning. We're in our 40th year, and St. Andrews people have been very key to our existence and growth and evolution over those 40 years. What I think I'd like to do, and I'll apologize to Elizabeth and Lydia, I'd like to show a little PowerPoint presentation to give some background to any of you who might not have it. I'll go relatively quickly because I'd rather spend the time talking about the things that we're doing relative to the poverty of our kids and their families, and make it as interactive as we can. Because my personal and very selfish goal is at the end of this, you guys will be excited to do some things with me as part of your response to Matthew 25, and that Loaves and Fishes can be then a vehicle to help you as you progress down that path. So do I have permission to share? Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, that should work.
Okay, so let us begin. Everybody see the screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. So our mission is to empower under-resourced kindergarten through 12th grade kids for life opportunities. And we do that with the vision that we will, you can read it, but I'm going to highlight some key words in our vision. One of them is all children. Now, we are defining community as Wake County, not just Raleigh. Achieve their potential. When the kids start working with us and all through their progress with us, they're not all the same spot. Some of them start further along in their journey to be successful than others. Some of them have more skills in one area than another. And so we hope to help them achieve their potential, whatever that is. And then a key thing for us, which I think will tie nicely into our discussion tonight, is that we strive to empower the families of the children. We have the kids 2.5 hours a day, 4 days a week, and they're at home or with their families a lot more than that. And so working with their families is really key to us. And if they start with us as young as kindergarten and work all the way through, we're going to get to know the families really well because we can work with them as many as 13 years. And the other key word I wanted to highlight there was collaborate. We can't do it all. There are lots of agencies and organizations and churches and individuals that have skills that are important to helping achieve our mission. And as long as we collaborate with them, we can bring those capabilities to bear with our kids. So I mentioned we're 40 years old now. Started downtown in Halifax Court housing project that doesn't exist anymore. It was next to what was then called Peace College, and now William Peace University. And that is a prime example of one of the issues that we wrestle with, gentrification. that housing project was destroyed. Now people would say, no, it wasn't destroyed. It was renewed. And okay, it's very nice now. And none of our families could possibly afford to live there anymore. We are primarily in what we call out of school program. We don't call ourselves after school, even though much of our work is after school, because we do a lot of things other than just the hours after school. We do concentrate on academic assistance, but we know that the environment, the homes that our kids come from, sometimes academic assistance falls prey to all the other things that are going on. As an example, if you are a kid in an apartment and your mom is behind in her rent and someday she gets locked out, you're not going to care about whether you got your homework done. You just want to know where we're sleeping tonight and where's my stuff. Did you get any of my stuff? So we have to work with that kind of an environment. And again, we try not to do it just ourselves. We collaborate with school teachers and families to make sure that we're working on the right kind of stuff. Sometimes it's helping with homework, sometimes it's remedial work. Some of our kids are as much as a couple grade levels behind in their academic skills. We work on social and emotional learning skills. Sometimes behaviors are an issue. And again, when you understand the situation kids come from, yeah, behaviors are an issue. Relationships are an issue. Taking care of themselves are an issue. And a lot of our kids don't know how to do any of those things because they don't have the models at home. Many of our kids come from generational poverty, and breaking those cycles is really tough. So we also then try to do enrichment things to make sure our kids get the opportunity to see things they might not otherwise see, do things that other kids get to do that maybe they don't. Not only to help them be kids, but to give them some experiences that may open up doors and interests and identify skills they didn't know they had. And we talk a lot about adverse childhood experiences. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that tonight, but when something bad happens to you as a kid, it has an impact on you. And it's not just an emotional or psychological impact. Depending on what it is and how often those kinds of things happen to you, it has an actual physical impact on your body. It changes the structure of your brain. It means that there may be attention deficits that prevent you from concentrating. It has a direct impact on the ability to be successful in school. And so understanding that, we can't change the things that happen, but we certainly can help our kids overcome those and build resilience. Because they're not born with resilience, you learn resilience. And so that's part of our work, is to be trauma informed in a way that we understand how to respond to the things that have happened. So instead, and we don't literally say this, but if one of our kids acts out inappropriately, the old-fashioned approach is, why did you do that? But the trauma-informed approach goes down the path that said, what happened to you that that's the response you came up with? And it may be that they just don't know a different way. A lot of our kids have two emotions. They're really happy or they're really angry. And they don't understand all the grades between them and how to respond to situations in a different way. So we've got 3 full-time, 5 part-time folks, lots and lots of volunteers. We have a board of directors with 8 volunteers running it. It's a great board. Our budget this year is about $210,000. It has been in past years as high as, I think, in looking at old records, as high as $350,000. And 9 years or 10 years ago, Loaves and Fishes, for some of you who have been involved with us for a long time, went through some bumps. I'll call them bumps. Lost their executive director in an unhappy way. There were even lawsuits, and all that is behind us. But during the course of that, the organization went for 2 years without an executive director. and it was just through the strength of the board and the volunteers and donors that we had who really believed in what we're doing that it kept going. So that knocked some of our funding away. There are 2 or 3 organizations that had been big funders who did like matching funds that have since wound down or not available, but it is what it is. And I think we're actually going to exceed that this year, but that's the conservative budget that we got approved with the board. So we got about 30 kids, 24 families, 18 of them have single parents. One of them, I think it's only one right now, is a single dad. The rest are single moms. Once in a while, the mom is a grandma. So, that's the general situation that we always have. Most of our families are single parents. Right now, all the kids that we're working with are Black. It says primarily from Southeast Raleigh, and again, you got the craziness of gentrification going on. If you've driven out New Bern Avenue, which used to be kind of the core of where we are, New Bern and Pool Road and Raleigh Boulevard, that area, and you can now spend $750,000 for a house out there. Well, none of our families are spending that kind of money, and most of them are renters. And so when prices are doing that kind of thing, they get pushed out. So in addition to Southeast Raleigh, we now have families that are living in Garner and Nightdale. We hold our after-school work at Westminster Presbyterian on East Whitaker Mill, halfway between 5 Points and Snoopy's on Old Wake Forest. We provide transportation. We've got 3 minibuses, and for the last 6 weeks, I've been delighted to be running around to make sure that at least 2 of them are working at the same time. I think we're past that, but our newest bus is a 2007, and they have personalities. We have lots and lots of volunteers, and some of the more exciting volunteers from my perspective are teens. We've got a bunch of kids from Broughton High School that come over. The real plus there that we didn't understand at the beginning was they know how to do the new math. So that's really helpful for our kids. But we also have people up to, I think the oldest one is approaching 80 years old, a woman whose husband died this past summer. And instead of shutting down, she said, I need to get out. I'm not going to let that happen. And she now comes and volunteers 2 to 3 days a week working with our kids after school. So let's talk a little about the community, because I think this gets to the poverty issue. Wake County, and again, we focus on kids, so I'm going to be talking mostly about data about our kids, but there's about 250,000 kids in Wake County who are of school age. Most, not all, but most of them go to Wake County Public Schools. And when you look at our community, again, this data is a little bit old. It's hard to get brand new data, but the average median income, and for anyone that's into statistics, median means middle. It doesn't mean average. So half of the families in Wake County have incomes greater than $83,500, and half of them are below that. When you look at federal poverty designations, a little over a quarter of that 254,000 kids live in poor or low income homes. And when you look at the progression of those kids, there are 40% of them that have failed 3rd grade reading proficiency. And coming out of the pandemic, the number is higher. So that's Wake County. When you look at cost of living in Raleigh, a 1-bedroom apartment, $1,465 a month. A 50% increase in 1 year. Rents have gone through the roof. It seems to be tapering off a little bit. Actually, I saw that the average selling price for a new home dropped in the last month, but it dropped to a number that is way beyond what any of our families could deal with. And I think you all know that the minimum wage in North Carolina is 7.25 an hour, which means that if you were able to have one full-time 40-hour-a-week job, you'd make 15 grand a year. A one-bedroom apartment on average, you could put all your income into it and not pay for it. So that's the community. Let me show you our families. These are the issues that our families wrestle with. Food insecurity. And again, despite our name, Loaves and Fishes, we are not a food bank. We work with the kids, and we always feed the kids because they're always hungry when they get to us. We're also cognizant of the fact that when they leave, it may be not much at home to eat, especially on a Thursday night. So things like backpack buddies are really important to our families. We try when we can to send boxes of food home. During the pandemic, we completely flipped what we were doing from school stuff to helping the families, and we did things we'd never done before, like go out and buy 300, 400 pounds of raw chicken and that was frozen and pass it out to the families, and did food drives and all kinds of stuff because food insecurity is a real problem with our families. We do a family night. We try to do it every month, and at the family night we serve a meal and we don't charge for it. Our kids come, they invite their families. We define family as anybody that's hanging around. So it could be a friend that is staying at your house. It could be cousins that are there. Doesn't matter how old. We invite them in, have a meal, and we try to send people home with extra food and food boxes when we've had the opportunity to get some. Affordable housing is a problem. Right now, I mentioned we had 24 families. I'm not exactly sure what the number is right now. I think there are 3 or 4 of those families right now that are homeless. Defining homeless in the way that, say, Families Together or Passage Home might define homeless. They might not be living under a bridge, but they're couch surfing, or they're stuck with a relative in a small apartment, or they're in a cheap hotel along New Bern Avenue or something like that. That's still homeless. It's not permanent housing. 4 or 5 years ago, we had at one time 8 of our families at the same time that were homeless, one of whom had 18 different mailing addresses in 12 months. Just outrageous. And then you think about the kids and the focus on academics. Wow, that was a tough one. We had 3 kids that we were working with. Transportation, reliable transportation, I should say, is an issue for most of our families. I am excited about bus rapid transit, but the more gentrification happens along those 4 BRT corridors that will push our families out, the less helpful that will be for our families. But I think it has the potential to be of assistance. And the fact that we are addressing transportation in the community, I think, is very helpful. And then a lot of it comes down to having living wage employment. If 7.25 is the minimum wage, and you're able to be way above that at $12 an hour, you can't afford to do much. So our families, 16 of those 24 families, are between 30% and 50% of that median income in our community. So that means that they make an income of $25,000 to $42,000. 8 of our families are below 30%. So they're 25 grand or less for the year. And our average family is 4.5 people. Obviously, we don't have any halves. So we've got some of our families are 2, and we've got one that's 9 people. I cannot imagine 9 people at less than half of the area median income, how they can survive that. And then you throw on top of it, we didn't talk at all about this, see, if you are fortunate enough to have a job, that means that you've got to figure out childcare as well, and transportation, all kinds of crazy things. Two of our families are in the home ownership process, which is wonderful for them. I don't know how the rest of them are going to ever get there. Already talked about gentrification, but in addition to all the other stuff, sometimes it changes school assignments, and that means that you have broken relationships that the kids had. That means that transportation has to all be figured out. And relative to Loaves and Fishes, since we provide transportation from the school to our program, it depends a little bit on where they end up. If they end up, finding housing in Wake Forest, we don't have time and transportation to get the kids to our program. And so then the families are wrestling with, gee, I want them in Loaves and Fishes, but I don't know how to get them there. And once in a while, we'll have a family that figures it out, and they bring their kids and pick them up. And it's a real hardship on them, but it's awesome that we get to keep working with the kids. So I mentioned adverse childhood experiences. I'm not going to really spend any time there other than, there are lots of awful things that happen to kids, and has an impact, has a difficult impact. And one of the things that we discovered as we did training and decided that we would pull our parents into that training was that many of our parents had adverse childhood experiences. And so as parents, they don't know any better in terms of how to work with their own kids. And it just keeps going. So build resilience, educate the families, work with their other organizations. That's what we try to do. So I don't know if we want to do this right now. We've done lots of things with St. Andrews. Let me just kind of throw that up there, because I think a lot of the things that we've done with you absolutely are helpful to us and help us address the issue of poverty in the community. Our biggest problem is that we're only working with about 30 kids right now. And boy, when you look at 26% of 250,000 kids that are living in poverty, that's a lot of kids. And so, being able to work with more kids is an objective, but we have essentially two constraints on adding kids to the program. And one of them is that we try to make sure that our class size is no more than 8 or 10 to 1. We have to do lots of individual work with our kids. Self-esteem is a huge problem when they start working with us. They don't have confidence. They failed all day in school. They may be bullied. They're all Black kids in a white world. They got all kinds of things stacked against them. And so building self-confidence is really important for us. And you can't do that in a group of 30 kids. So we try to keep it to 8 to 10. And we have one of our staff people, a paid staff person who has that group. And then we try to have a couple of volunteers at any time. And this year, that's really going well. In addition to the high school kids I mentioned and some longtime individual volunteers, there are a couple organizations like the National Charity League, which is a group of women and their daughters who have been working with us, and they've worked with us for many years, but it's really strong right now, and that's great. And if we can have one of our classroom facilitators and 2 volunteers in a group of 8 to 10 kids, it works really well. The other issue then is space. If you're going to have a group of 8 to 10 and you've got 30 kids, what that means is that you've got 3 or 4 classrooms that you need in order to make it work. So to add another 8 to 10, I need to add a facilitator, which will cost me $10,000 to $12,000, and space. Right now, over at Westminster, I could add another classroom. I just need to be able to fund another facilitator. But you get beyond that, and there's there's space requirements as well. So we are doing a couple of interesting things there. I'll tell you one of them that we're looking at. There is a church over close to downtown on the east side at the corner of South Swain Street and Martin Street. And it's been empty for a few years. A long time ago, it was a spin-off from First Presbyterian Church called the Vanguard Church. It used to be a Sunday school class called the Vanguard. And they built a church there. And after a few years, that church sold it and built Milner Presbyterian Church, which, if you've driven out New Bern over the last couple of weeks, is totally gone. The congregation shut down, I think, 4 years ago, and the presbytery and what used to be called Presbyterian Homes, I can't think of what it's called now, Bright Spire or something like that, are building low-income senior housing on that block. And so they just finished demolishing the old church, saved the stained glass windows and some of the pews and other things they're going to try to use in the construction of the new facility. But that left that church then to another congregation which stopped using it. Edenton Street United Methodist has done a long-term lease on it and has just finished renovating it. We're going to use that church for something we call Brideford Parents Christmas Tour, which I'd like to talk about at some point, because I think it's a way that that we help address poverty in our families. We're exploring having maybe our middle school and high school kids be in that facility with our elementary school kids staying at Westminster. That means we got two locations, a whole new set of hurdles, but it means that we also free up space at Westminster for more elementary school kids. And by bringing kids in at the bottom grade levels and then building that up over time, I think we could we could get probably up to the 45 or 50 kids. And you still have to fund the staffing, but that would address the space issues. I'm not going to run through all these. We can talk about them later, but where do we go from here? So let me get rid of that. Stop screen sharing. There we are. So are there any questions about the basic facts and understanding of what we do? I'd be happy to expound on anything, and as Elizabeth and Lydia for sure know, and I think Michael's seen it too, you gotta be careful what you ask me, because I could talk forever.
Yeah, go ahead and take yourself off mute if you have a question.
Joe,
Yes, go ahead.
Joe, I would just like to ask a little bit about the volunteer opportunities, which you
Yes.
had on the previous screen there. And there was one category that said volunteers. And I guess I think of a lot of folks at SAPC, when they think of Loaves and Fishes, they assume that the volunteering opportunities are primarily for the after-school program, to be in the classroom piece with the kids, helping with tutoring, with different homework assignments or what have you. But one of the things that I found in your discussions with us previously is that there's so many other specific types of ways to volunteer. Could you talk to that a little bit, please?
Absolutely. I just put our website URL in the chat, by the way. Yeah. And there is a tab on our website called Get Involved. And if you have an interest, I'll run through some things that we see people enjoying and that would be helpful to us. You can go to the website, fill out some basic information, and it will come to us. We do ask all of our volunteers, I should revise that. We ask most of our volunteers who are going to do ongoing kinds of things to fill out a volunteer information form. We do background checks if you're going to work hands-on with our kids, like in the classroom, that kind of thing. When we're working with kids, we have to be careful. And we got all, I mean, you get beyond staff and facilities, and our biggest expense is insurance because we're working with kids. But certainly the after school working hands-on with the kids is the easiest thing to think of. And that might be as simple as coming in just a few times because you like little kids and you want to have a kid sit on your lap while you read a story to them, or even more interesting sometimes is have them read a story to you. Or you have a hobby and you'd like to come in, maybe you play the guitar and you'd like to come in and show the kids, play the guitar, let them sing, let them, maybe strum a few chords or something to get interested. Those are easy kinds of things to do. A lot of the high school kids come in and help with homework, and then maybe they'll take a group of 4 or 5 kids outside to play. And so that's an easy volunteer thing. But one of the things that we can do, which again is still after school, but it's a different way of doing it. And this is something that we learned through necessity in the pandemic. You can help kids with their homework and help them tutoring virtually. So if somebody is interested in hooking up with one of our kids, we've got a corporate Zoom license. We can make an appointment, and it doesn't have to be in the after school hours. We've got sometimes we do this in the evening, where we'll have a kid that needs help with algebra, and a volunteer that's willing to hook up for a half an hour in the evening through Zoom. We'll set that up, we'll send the links, and you can do it from home. Even in the afternoon, there are some people that say, I live north of 540, and I'm not too excited about having to get dressed up and drive into Westminster, and all this kind of stuff's going to take me all afternoon. Fine, we'll hook you up with Zoom, and you can do it in a half an hour. So that's something that I think would be very much core of what we do, but in a way that might be easier for people. We also do some things in the evenings. These are not as regularly scheduled. The afternoon program is based on school calendars, Mondays through Thursdays, unless school is out. And again, remember, we're working with Lake County Public Schools, which is huge and has all kinds of crazy calendars. And so people track out, and not all schools track out at the same time. So that's an interesting scheduling problem. But we like to do what we call boys groups and girls groups, where we'll get a group of 6 or 8 girls together in the evening, and they may do pizza and talk about something, or maybe they'll see a film and they'll talk about the film. And sometimes girls want to talk about things without boys there, and vice versa. So we'll do that kind of thing, and it would be an opportunity for somebody that wants to sit down with a group of kids and talk about something they think is important, or some experiences they've got, and we can come up with ideas of topics. If they would like to do that would be a fun thing to do. We also do some things on weekends occasionally. This past summer, we did a gleaning trip. We've done that every year, sometimes multiple years. I think we had about 15 people, went out to Johnston County and gleaned sweet potatoes. Turned out to be a beautiful day. So we tromped around in the field, and we had some volunteers and a bunch of our kids, made some sandwiches. Everybody took home a bag of sweet potatoes, and then we brought 30 additional bags home to give to our families and others that we're connected with that we know could use some fresh food like that. That's a fun thing to volunteer with, and that's something where you can say, I just want to do one thing. I don't have time to do this. I don't have time and energy to maybe make a commitment to see the same kid every week for a whole year, but I'd like to do something. So that's an easy one. One of the things that I'm terrible at is writing thank you letters. I'd welcome anybody, anytime, that would like to write thank you letters. You can do that from home. You can do that anytime you want. You can watch the ball game and crank out some thank you letters if you want. So I'd be happy to have somebody help me with that. I mentioned the buses. I've got a volunteer who is aging out. He's done this for probably 20 years. He goes to White Memorial. A neat guy. He's probably 89 now, and his health is starting to fail. But he would come every weekend. He had keys to, still does, keys to all of our buses, and he would take the bus, fill it up with gas, save the receipt so we'd reimburse him, and bring it back so that we didn't have to do that. And every year when it's time for license inspection, he'd take it out to Atlantic Tire because that's where he had a relationship, make sure it got done. A month ago, he would have had the buses down to a gas station checking the antifreeze. He just did little things like that. Nobody knew he did it. He was very quiet about it. He liked it that way. I need a new gray pool. That's his name. And so instead, right now, I'm the guy. Well, there are probably other things I ought to be doing, but it has to be done. And that's a volunteer opportunity. Somebody can pick that up. Even driving the bus sometimes. This past summer, we did a summer program for 3 weeks. See what happened, Lydia? You asked a question. I've now talked for more than 5 minutes on the same answer. We had a 3-week summer program. This next summer, it's going to be 6 weeks because we were fortunate enough to get a grant that funds our staffing and admission fees and food and all that kind of stuff for an extended summer program. And we took the kids over to Asheboro to the zoo. We took the kids swimming. One of the things that we've done for several years is in the very first week of the program in the mornings, we hook up with the church and they all went to Vacation Bible School. And then in the afternoon, we'd have the kids and, we always do some academic work because, during the summer, everybody forgets everything and our kids are already behind. So we do that, but we take them swimming, we take them to, I can't remember what they're called, but trampoline courts, all kinds of things. And having chaperones or, field trip people to go along with us, that'd be great fun. I can see, one of the things that I'd love to see happen is the St. Andrew's Youth Group working with our kids. And I think that could happen in summertime pretty easily now. I don't think it happens as easily for after school, but I have funding. Part of our summer going to be. We're actually talking about doing this in April, taking all of our kids to Virginia for a 2-night overnight camping experience. That's kind of scary to me, but I think it will be a blast. And if we had some people that would like to spend a weekend with a bunch of kids and our staff, that'd be a great opportunity to participate, have some fun, and lots of things like that we can do. I think maybe the thing that people haven't thought about is the virtual tutoring, which I think is a very flexible way that you could help directly with our program.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for sharing all of that. And the virtual tutoring is especially helpful because that is one thing that we've been talking about in terms of our service experiences and, how do we involve folks, who might be more homebound or need to be at home. So that virtual tutoring could very well be a great opportunity to serve that way. So thank you for sharing all of those. I just think it's important to, I would love to see, be able to put out a list of these types of things out there regarding Loaves and Fishes for St. Andrews so that folks can see that there's so many different ways to volunteer.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that we always have to keep in mind is that when you're working with a volunteer, it's not just a one-way kind of thing. It's not the volunteer doing something for Loaves and Fishes. We want to make sure that it's an experience that is rewarding for the volunteer too. And we've talked about this, but transportation always comes up as how do we handle this? It would be kind of neat, I think, to have some of our kids connect with some people that could kind of be pseudo grandparents. Their kids are gone, and maybe it's a a man or a woman who's alone, and connect to to have one of our kids be their short-term grandkid.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know exactly how to do that, and I'd be open to any ideas, but I think it could be kind of fun both ways.
Thank you.
Sure. Michael, you're muted if you're talking to me.
Sorry. Thanks, Joe. Lydia and Elizabeth, being on the Missions and Outreach Committee, Loaves and Fishes is one of our 3 primary programs. Is there work underway to establish a better connection or somebody to be that connection person? And you're muted, Lydia.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I think one of the things that we're going to be doing is we're going to be having the communication director. Is it Carrie?
Callie.
Callie, I'm sorry. She is going to be joining us at our meeting next month. And one of the things that we would like to do there is really just identify, very specific things to communicate about the especially with regard to the 3 ministries that we've identified. And one of the first places to start is, okay, let's look at how you could volunteer and how do you go about doing that? Do you go to their website? Do you go to, the advocate? Do you, what are some of the ways so that we can really clarify for folks and make it as easy as possible for them to become part of it?
There's an activity that I haven't mentioned yet, or I may have mentioned it in passing, that I think in the short term has some opportunities for people to get involved. And you guys have always participated. And Michael, to some extent, this addresses your question: is there a point person, if you will? And it's what we call our Pride for Parents Christmas store. It's an alternative, and at St. Andrews we're kind of blending it. It's an alternative to an old approach called the angel tree, where you get, and after the meeting, Lydia, I went upstairs and I saw that the tree's up. So you put a tag on the tree that says, "Hi, my name is," or maybe you don't have a name. I'm a 7-year-old girl. My favorite color is pink. I'm really looking for a doll, and this is the size of clothes I wear. And so somebody takes that tag and they go shopping, and they're excited because they got something for that child. That child's excited because they got something that they asked for. And I'm that child's dad. And when somebody comes and delivers those beautiful presents that I don't know for sure what's inside, by some person who doesn't look like me and seems nice, but it kind of reinforces that I'm a failure as dad, that I couldn't do, and I had to rely on somebody else. Or I send my kids over to the Salvation Army and they come back with, I have no idea what they're going to come back with. They come back with something and they're excited. And again, I feel badly about it. So Pride for Parents says, instead of making donations that way, donate them to what we're calling our Pride for Parents Christmas store. It's kind of a pop-up store. And there are probably 6 of them in town. We all work together. And then we have hours where we open our store. And the families can come in and they shop for their kids. And all of the merchandise is either donated, it's new stuff, or Loaves and Fishes and other agencies do the same thing, has gone out and bought new things to put in the store. So as an example, I just today placed an order at Walmart, not necessarily my favorite store, but it's got good prices. I placed an order for 13 bicycles because bicycles are hard to get donations for. And those will be in the stores. And the retail price on those bikes range from $70 to $100. We will not sell a bike without giving a free helmet with that bike. And a helmet ranges 25 to 35 bucks. So you're talking a package here of, 90 to $130. And we'll sell it for 40 bucks, 35 for a small bike. And a family will come in, they'll choose the bike. Bicycles are hard to wrap, but think of other things. Think of a Barbie doll, a brand new Barbie doll in its package for $3. And we'll have a gift wrapping station. Volunteers come in and do gift wrapping. Volunteers come in and help us put the merchandise out on tables and display it nicely, help families find the things that they want. Serve cookies, play music, help us with registration, tons of volunteer opportunities. And I'll put in the chat there a link to an organization called Activate Good. Any of you know what Activate Good is? I see no nodding of heads. Activate Good is a non-for-profit in town whose sole purpose is to connect people who want to volunteer with organizations that need volunteers. It's a fantastic organization. And so they've got an automated platform. And I'll put the link there. You can go out there and search for all kinds of stuff. And last year was our best year ever. We had 184 families come through our store to buy things for their kids. And I don't know the exact number, but we had something like 75 volunteers. You can come for a 2.5-hour shift and be done with it. Or you can say, hey, and I know that CJ Edwards is working on this right now. This has happened in the past, and I love it, where a church says, we'll take that day. And, we'll staff it with all St. Andrews folks, and we'll come in, and it's almost a party. And it's great fun. You feel really good when you see these families. We've got families that at the end of it break down. I can hardly say it. Break down crying because of what they were able to do for their kids. And it's an awesome experience. So that's another volunteer kind of thing. Again, it's only once a year, but Loaves and Fishes sets it up. We're open for 10 days, starting December the 6th. Through December the 23rd. My wife is appalled that we're that close to Christmas still playing this game, but it's a really neat experience. And some of the store hours are in the middle of the day, some of them are in the evening, some of them are on Saturdays. A couple of them we made sure we're close to paydays because you're not making a lot of money and it's end of the 2-week or half-month cycle. You're not buying Christmas presents, you're trying to buy dinner. Anyway.
Joe, that St. Andrews is offering donations to Pride for Parents this year instead of the Angel Tree is still an option, but I know a bunch of us are choosing to donate to Pride for Parents instead.
That's awesome. I appreciate it.
That's one of the options this year, so hopefully it'll be one of the only options in the future.
Okay, so yeah. Oh, Elizabeth, you put that out there. Thank you. I already was just getting ready to do that. There's something else I want to throw out there for you. Are any of you familiar with an organization called the Justice Theater Project? Okay. Justice Theater Project operates out of the Umstead United Church of Christ. And they do live productions, a whole series of them, And they're always something to do with justice. It may be racial, it may be poverty, and then all kinds of things. It's a neat organization. And every year they hold a production that they call the Black Nativity. And I'm going to put a link out there for that. Black Nativity. It is on a Saturday. There are two showings. I think one's in the afternoon, one's later in the afternoon. And they're holding it. They used to hold it inside. The pandemic changed that, and they did one outside, and it went so well. They're doing it outside again. It's at the North Carolina Art Museum, and you go to that. It's free, but I would, as you guys are dealing with poverty and justice issues, I would encourage you to get to know the Justice Theater Project, and that's an easy way to do it. Pastor Tom's not on here, but so I'll tell you this anyway. If you go to that, you won't have to go to church the next day, because it's an awesome. It's like going to a festive Black church Christmas service. It is truly awesome. The place rocks. We've done that several years. So I've got 20 reserve tickets that I'm going to take Loaves and Fishes families and our staff and some of our friends, Loaves and Fishes friends, to go see this together. And there are lots of opportunities that, it would be, again, something else that we could do is say, here's an event that we would like to make a St. Andrew's Day, and do it with Loaves and Fishes families and St. Andrew's families, and just do things together. The whole deal in my mind of wrestling with especially racism, but poverty and all kinds of justice issues is when you get to know the people that are different than you, it changes everything. So that's one of the things that we're doing this year.
Other questions people might have? Yeah, a lot of possibilities here. So we'll try to get ourselves organized so that we can start connecting our members with some of these.
Again, food is an issue of poverty, but just another thing that we could do when we did a family night. If St. Andrews wanted to sponsor a family night, we could even do it at St. Andrews. I know you guys have a big, wonderful kitchen. We can invite Loaves and Fishes families and provide transportation up Falls of the News and have a meeting and a program and a dinner right there. Or we can invite your folks to come join us wherever we're going to be.
Okay, I think we will wrap up tonight. Certainly the missions and outreach is the connection point if you want to find out more about Loaves and Fishes, or lafchildren.org.
Right.
A moment of commercial here for the Matthew 25 Mondays. We're taking next Monday off, Thanksgiving, but 2 weeks from now, Pastor Tom Watkins will be leading us in a 4-week study called O Come Emmanuel, a Bible study on the intersection of Matthew 25 and Advent. And the only other information I've been able to get from Tom is that you need to bring your Bible. So we'll have Zoom links and registration for that. Tom did offer his apologies. There's a pastoral emergency he had to deal with, so he had to log off early.
I just put my email in the chat as well. If you think of something later, or there's something that you'd like to engage in right away, don't wait for missions. It's okay.
Joe, thank you for spending the time this evening, for spending the time a few weeks ago with the missions committee, and everything you're doing for these kids, and for having patience with us while we figure out how we can be involved.
Yeah. The interesting thing, no matter what has happened, you guys went, as did our church, quite some time without a lead pastor. It didn't slow you down. You still did stuff. You still supported us and other organizations. I appreciate perseverance that your congregation has had too.
Great. Katie, would you be kind enough to close us in prayer?
Sure. Heavenly Father, we thank you tonight for those gathered here today, and we thank you for the work of Loaves and Fishes and for giving us this wonderful information. Please help us guide us with discernment of how we can plug ourselves in and work alongside and get to know these young folks and their families to create a more beloved community. We ask this in your precious name. Amen.
Amen.
Michael, may I add just one more thing?
Please.
I mentioned that we have to collaborate with other organizations to get this done. My frustration is the few number of kids that we get to work with. My excitement is the depth to which we build those relationships, because those mean everything. We got kids that they were with Loaves and Fishes 30 years ago, and they're still connected with us and still help and work with our kids. But I'm trying to collaborate with other after-school programs to see if we can do some things together and expand our collective reach. There's one in particular called Avon West Children's Mentoring that on the surface, you know Avon West?
Joe, I'm a Junior League of Raleigh sustainer, and they're very
of course
involved
you know
there.
them, sure. Yeah, I can't remember what the program is. They're one of your acorns or something like that?
It's a mentoring, yeah.
Yeah. So they just got a new executive director, a delightful woman who lives in Durham. They focus more on kids of Hispanic kids. We focus more on Black kids. When you look at their service area, there's Black kids all around them. When you look at ours and go a little out towards Wake, there are Hispanic kids all over the place. We ought to be doing stuff together. And so I'm looking to figure out how we might do some things like that. And one of the things that Kavani, who is their new ED, and I have talked about is, and we couldn't get ready this time, but there are multiple cycles during the year. What if we went together with a couple of Presbyterian churches and submitted to New Hope Presbytery a passion-driven ministry request to do things together? So put that on the list.
Okay.
Okay, I'm done. Sorry.
And Joe, one other thing, just while I've got you to put in your for your volunteers, if you'll reach out to Junior League of Raleigh Quick Impact Team, it's a
Okay.
team of people who have to do a certain number of hours anywhere, and so they can mobilize a small team for you on a project if you need it, if they have the space. But that's their whole goal. They don't have an assignment for the year. They just go where they're needed in different projects.
Okay, I know that a few years ago they did a mass mailing for us, and it was.
Yep, they do a lot of that. Yeah, they do a lot of that.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lori.
Lori, do you think you could send Joe an email to just be a connection point to Junior
Yeah.
League?
Yeah,
That'd
I
be
will.
great. Thank you.
Thank-
Okay. Lydia?
No, I was just thanking everyone for being in. And Joe, thank you for going through this with us again. This is just such an important ministry. So thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Joe. It was awesome. And so many different opportunities for different kinds of people, different kinds of talents. I think it's
Yeah.
really
It's exciting.
Yeah, it's almost like if somebody wants to volunteer, we ask them what they would like to do, and we can figure out how to use it.
Great.
awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
All
Okay.
right.
Thank you,
night,
everybody.
everybody.